for us as well. So this is me sharing an article that's up on the Science of Fantasy Football here. And there it is. And let me start with right here. And I was looking 2015 to 23. I was asking the question about who is in the top 30% of consistency by my metric, counts over median. That means above a historic median that I calculated by this was 9 years of data. And then I figured out at the position level, RBs, tight ends, wide receivers, QBs, and looked at that. And this is for year to year here. So the way you interpret this is running backs that were in the top. I called it green because I stained it a green color. This is what I mean by color. Here's wide receivers here. And anything green is in the top 30% of this position that year. And I sorted by 2023. You can see CeeDee Lamb did quite well for your team right here. And of course, Brown. But basically, they're tier one, if they repeat exactly next year. So that should, and then we have Tyreek Hill and so forth. So you can see the tiers starting to stack up. So I asked the question year to year. So if I looked at who was in the top group and last year, what did they do this year? And that's what this table is showing, what percentage of players survived year to year. And you're saying, well, there's some years it's been, here was for tight ends, 1 year, 2017, 82%, 2022, 67. So notice there are some years that were really sucky. Look at the running backs. You want to talk about why zero RB came into fashion. My hypothesis was if you looked at consistency in 15, 16, and 18, it sucked. And I think if you were thinking, let me go zero RB, look at 19, 64, 20, 52, 21, 51, or 54, 50. Last year, 35. So we had an issue last year. So what is going to be 2024, Dennis? See, there's the trick here. This shows you that there are times and years that are really good for who was good last year, continues to be good this year. And you're thinking, well, that's interesting. So to me, when I see this, and of course I have my box and whisker and I look at the distributions here, and I think we talked a little bit about this, but let me go one step further, Dennis. I asked the question, who was good the last 2 years? So years like for, the last 2 years, what did they do the third year in the sequence? And here's the bottom line. Green means they were at the top. So if you have shown, as this is wide receivers, 2 years green, your third year, almost 70%, Dennis, were green again. They continued the trend. QB 62, RB 60. There you go. RB 67. Tight ends were the weakest at 57. But if consistency is random, I would not. And there are ways to statistically do this. I just haven't, because I've done enough of targets and attempts. I've done this. You can look at my lesson plans previous year. I'm doing other things, so I didn't follow up, but I would predict that statistically this is real. And if consistency didn't matter, I would be very skeptical how a player that was good 2 years in a row and was good the third year, 70%. How could that happen if there was just a randomness to it, right? So that falls apart when I look at the data. That's just my conclusion. Notice I didn't say 100%, Dennis, nowhere. So
No.
that's where Fantasy Receipts makes their money, because the let's just say people talk in absolutes. There is no absolutes in fantasy football. So you've always got, and this is kind of the psychological thing, you're in a minefield and you never know. Somebody says, you got a 30% chance of stepping on a landmine, but good news, if you take 2 steps, you got a 70% chance that third step you're safe. And you're thinking, well, that sounds okay. Well, but it's not random. It would, it's not. I don't think it's random. The data that I've tracked doesn't support randomness, Dennis. So, what you think about this? I don't know if I showed you this last year.
No.
Yeah. See, I'm surprising you.
No, and I love looking at data like this, because this tells you a couple of things. One of the worst things you can do in fantasy football is chase the 1-year wonders. Okay. When you see that turnover chart from 1 year to the next,
it's not as strong as 2 years, and then the
it's
third.
not as strong as 2 years.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you
yeah.
get a player that shows you that he's good 2 years in a row. And I don't care what metric you use to describe that. If he is really good, if he is the elite of the elite 2 years in a row, there's a high likelihood that he's going to continue that for the third year.
I'm going to say nearly 65%.
Yeah, I'll take that odds. I'll take those.
That's
odds.
What it is. It's a bet. Football. It's a 6-5 bet, or whatever it is. I don't know, 4-5, whatever it is. I forgot.
And if you drill down on that, and you now eliminate aging and moving to worse offenses. So in other words, you do some analysis for the next season.
It's up to you to take the data and do analysis, Dennis.
You will take that 68% group and you will increase your odds of picking the right player in that 68% batch. Because this is not random. If it was, we'd be closer to 50-50 on everything. But all of the statistics that I do have shown that they're sticky, that from 1 year to the next, you might see a spike. But even if you look at the data and you say, okay, I'm going to set my threshold value at 80 points on your MVP index. If a guy's over 80, he's going to be a significant factor on my team. He might be 133 1 year, down to 90 the next year, back up to 125. But all 3 seasons, he was a significant contributor to your team. And your comm data does the exact same thing. And what I love about the comm data is that you look at this as a percentage versus games played.
Yes.
So it's taking the minor injuries out of the equation. If a guy missed 3 games, it doesn't show up. I don't count
that again. That's right.
Correct. It doesn't show up. And that's the way you need to play fantasy football.
Dennis, choking you up. My data's that good.
The data is that good.
I am impressed. Choking Dennis up.
Choking me up. But here's the thing is, if you look at this data and you use it wisely, because I don't care about injuries in fantasy football. Injuries are random. They happen to everybody. We saw Christian McCaffrey play 2 seasons in a row where he took 96% of his team's offensive snaps and stayed healthy.
He's still God. He's still God.
Oh, he still is. Then we saw 2 years where he couldn't stay on the field because of injury. And now we've seen 2 years where he is still the fantasy football God, even though he's now back down to about 65 to 70%, a normal range of offensive snaps, and he's still producing
My
at a
comp
high
data has
level.
him at 90 per. I don't know. In this data range to 14, I've never had anybody that high.
No, and he's the same on my MVP index. He's at 159 on
I
my
mean,
MVP
he
index.
shoots it. He's really yeah. He's judged by himself.
Next highest was Kyron Williams at 121, and that's
Mine
based on the
was
last 2 years.
Kyron was 3, and then Kamara
Yeah,
was 2. But really, you see, at some point you got to use your head a little bit. That's pretty much the same player.
very close, very close. And that's the key is you've got one outlier, and then you've got a bunch of guys who are pretty close, and
Getting pretty close.
then you
Yeah.
got another tier.
And
That's how
that's
you
why
have.
people do tiers is they try
Yes.
to shuffle that, but just that's why I look big, top down, Dennis. It's the top down because if you go bottom up, then sometimes you'll miss. You know, is 64% with Barkley really different than 77 and 75? I think it is.
Yeah, that's
But
at
that's what
least.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
But if you just kind of start grabbing things and then look, is
Gets
54%
tight.
with Connor versus Rasheed White at see then see it's easy when it's at the top and all the experts and by the way, just this is just me running my mouth. I'm a professor. They spend a lot more time than they should talking about the obvious, probably us
Oh yeah.
too.
Yeah.
But today we're going to actually circle back and try to find some surprises or see what the public is thinking. We're going to work to that. That's part 2 of my. But when Dennis starts talking about his consistency, and by the way, his article, one of is I like your top, Dennis. Yes, consistency does matter. This is all the science of fantasy football.com. You can see Dennis's, you can see my metrics and my videos. You can find our podcast from previous weeks. And Dennis has all sorts of stuff here. He's got here's his draft strategy, which we still get cranky about. Uh, but there it is, and you could see all sorts of good stuff with his. Is this dynasty? Yeah, dynasty strategy, redraft. So it's all there, folks. Somewhere, and I know we don't have interns. This would be really slick. And no offense, I think we're just slick enough to get you what you need versus too slick and you miss some things. So just be aware some of these click sites, they a little too slick here. We call those city slickers down here in Arkansas, Dennis. That's why I love you. I know you were a city slicker, but you're a rural guy now out there in the wilds of Indiana there. So I like that. See, that's good. So you understand that rule, that agriculture. You understand Mr. Haney a little bit more from Green Acres.
Yeah,
And we all,
having to climb up the phone pole to make a phone call though,
yeah.
it gets a little old,
Look,
but
hey, that was great. That was a great show back. Check it out. Green Acres the pig was Arnold Ziffel. The pig was the smartest cat or dog or pig on the whole show. Better than the actors. Even better than Zsa Zsa Gabor. I like the pig. I mean, people say she was good looking. Yes, she was, but I'd rather see the pig watching TV and having some great lines. His lines were oink oink, but they would set him up with questions, and he'd squeal and whatnot. Man, it was great, but remember, we only had 3 channels. These youngins don't know, Dennis.
no, it was a tough time back then.
Saturday morning cartoons. You got up at 6:30, 8, and did your cartoon all damn day. Okay, till the cartoon stopped and American Bandstand hit at about noon. Then it was time to go out and play and torment the neighborhood. But you know, But nowadays they got Cartoon Network. You can watch cartoons day and night. So anyway, lots of good articles here. The consistency does matter. You can hear Dennis ranting and raving here. What consistency ain't? Come on, Dennis.
I
And
had to show my rural
yeah,
roots with using the
he's
word ain't.
defining consistency and why when you measure it and his conclusion. Go check out his article there. I think it's really good. So anyway, Dennis, I'm gonna move to our value for running backs, but you got anything to finish up on our consistency rant?
Yeah, and here's the thing is if you find highly consistent players,
Yep.
especially if you see them relative to their ADP with an edge on the competition, that's when you cash in, folks, because there are some sleepers out there. But here's the thing about consistency that a lot of people don't do that next connect the dots. If a team does not have a player that has proven he can be a consistent performer in fantasy football, it's probably going to translate to real football as well. Last year, for example, there were some teams that were going into the season with no proven star at that position. Mainly, it was because it was a guy who was taking over that would never played 10 full games, which I use as my criteria. If you haven't played 10 full games at running back in the last 2 years combined, I'm not trusting you any more than I trust a rookie coming into the league or a second year player that's been sitting on the bench. And if that's the best choice you have, or the best choice you have is a guy whose MVP rating is less than 80, and especially as it drops off even more, let's say it's 52, I'm not trusting that guy holding that position all season long. And look at guys that popped up on this page last year at running back. Kyren Williams came out of nowhere, was on a huge portion of my best ball and redraft teams and a lot of my dynasty teams still. Is it because I thought Kyren Williams was a great player when he came out of college? No. He had a bad first year as well.
Yep.
But Cam Akers was all he had to beat out. And there was nothing else. There was Ronnie Rivers, Cam Akers, and Darrell Henderson came to camp but got cut very quick. If that's the competition, I'm going to take a shot at Kyren Williams late in drafts, and he paid off. Brian Robinson was another case like that last year. He was on an awful offense. They were awful. It was an awful team with Washington Commanders. His MVP index was very close to Saquon Barkley's. It was better than Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones. He was a guy that was available cheap and had already shown as a rookie that he had an acceptable MVP index, and the only guy I had to beat out was Antonio Gibson, who was not getting the volume anyway. So he became a great choice. And every season, Professor, we see guys like this. I'm not going to try to tell you that player X has more talent than player Z. I'm not a talent expert. But if I see that player X, who is the incumbent starter, has not been very good, I'm going to take a shot at player Z in fantasy football. Maybe I take player Y and player Z off the same team late in drafts and figure out as the season goes on which guy is going to win that job. But last year was Kyren Williams. It was Ty Chandler with Minnesota. It was Devin Singletary in Texas with Houston Texans. Those are the three guys that I looked at and I said, there's nothing ahead of them that has either been able to stay healthy or been able to produce at a consistent rate, I'm going to take a shot at each one of these players. And it paid off. All of them paid off. Ty Chandler didn't pay off until really late in the season because Alexander Madison, who was going way too early in drafts last year, was continued to give the ball to him, give the ball to him, give the ball to him because he'd been okay in part-time duty. Didn't cut it in full-time duty. That's how you got to find value at the running back position. It's easy to find the Christian McCaffreys and the Breece Halls and the Bijan Robinsons and the Jamar Gibbs and the Saquon Barkleys, the Jonathan Taylor. Those guys, you don't need help finding them. All you need is the luck of getting the right draft position so you can get them early in the draft. Although I'll make the case that Saquon Barkley might not be a first-round guy this year because Philadelphia does not like to go heavy on the volume for the running backs, and that could hurt him. But those are the kinds of things you need to look at when you're trying to find value, meaning guys that are going to outperform their ADP and be a significant player in helping you win this year in fantasy football.
So, Dennis, what we're looking at, and by the way, those that are listening to the podcast, I'm videoing this data so you can hear us talking about the data. So, multiple ways, Dennis, this has been looking at this multiple ways. This is ADP from last week, but I don't think it's dramatically changed. We're doing running backs today. And what we see here, Dennis, I just sorted by the average, the rank, overall rank, and the average ADP, Christian McCaffrey, number one. And you can then see the column that they've produced here. And I do have positional rank if you want to look at it like that. Look at pause rank. And then here's their column data. And I just showed you the doublet, how they did in the third year. So we could quickly say, looks, 70% of these guys, McCaffrey, Hall, Barkley, Henry, Mixon, Ramondre Stevenson, Tony Pollard, who else? Connor. 70% of those, so I don't know how many, I don't know if that was 7, but probably about 5 of those 7, or how many I did, are going to make it again. So there's 2 potential. I mean, it could be 80% this year. I mean, I don't know, Dennis. I'm just saying statistically, it tells me you could use this data 2 ways. Be happy, like what I just said, look at the value, but find the 2 or 3 odd ducks out that, and you just said one, Barkley. You just kind of, did a little bit there, your view. And folks, I think the way I've seen Dennis look at the data, and this is circling back to something called decision hygiene, and I'll probably get around, this is more psychological, on how you clean up your decision making. Lots of different ways people discuss, but one of the key things is withholding judgment. And if you're the kind that wants kind of a yes or no, then you should withhold your judgment all the way to the night before the draft and then get serious. Dennis, with his weather forecasting, with his horse racing skills or lack of skills, whatever, he thinks range of outcomes, that gives him a strength. And he's been doing that for God knows how many years, probably when his dad was going to beat him for being bad, what's the range of outcomes that if I go around and F around over here, my dad's going to paddle my butt. Dennis knew, and he juggled those data early on, the being the bad kid in the neighborhood. If I break that window, what's the odds my dad's going to beat me silly? And he knew there was a range of outcomes there. And I heard his dad was a prince, and I don't know how Dennis got so lucky. But anyway, range of outcomes. Dennis, that's why I think Dennis is really good. Dennis in Dynasty because of that. But anyway, 68, 70%, something like that. I'm telling you, I gave you the 7 or 8. I forgot how many.
8.
But there's, yeah, okay, there's probably 2 in there, 2 odd ducks. Look at your draft diary. Are you good at finding those? Have you shown consistently, man, I'm as good as Dennis on his range of outcomes, or are you suckered by the 2? I mean, there's your skill set, is finding the 2 and claiming it like, damn it, they look good last year, but not this year. And their range of outcomes looks to be suspicious, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and here's the thing: when I talk about Saquon Barkley, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be good in Philadelphia. But the problem is the volume. Will the volume be as high as he's had the last 2 years? And I say no. And last year, using my MVP index, he was 13th ranked at running back. So I look at him at 5 on the chart and I say, that might be a little high.
That could be his ultimate range of outcome to the ceiling, right?
Correct. That could be his ceiling. And I'm thinking maybe 10th is where I'd feel more comfortable with taking him. So I'm not likely to get Saquon Barkley on my team.
If you use some data, I might argue that if he can drop from my column of, say, 65 to 50, you put him at 13. I mean, that's another way. I mean, and you can use, so this data, folks, it allows me to kind of look and things just jump out at us. And that was one.
Yeah, and here's a guy even higher up the food chain, Breece Hall. I can make a case to say, Breece Hall might flirt with being in that same level as Christian McCaffrey, because he did this 47 and the year before did the 57 as a rookie.
So if he could be 67, maybe.
Probably the worst quarterback situation that you
bad.
could ever have.
And they stayed, I don't think they gave him the reign until about mid-season.
Yeah, they were very slow at going
sluggish
to him
on using him. Yeah.
Because his rookie year, they were afraid because he was a rookie. And his sophomore year, they were afraid because he was coming back from an injury. So if he comes out week 1, and they're giving the kind of volume that he was getting from week 10 on last year, he's going to be in that same class as a Christian McCaffrey.
But is he worth the 2, though?
I think he's worth the 2.
So that's your ceiling for him.
I think he's worth the 2. I think his ceiling is he could be better than Christian McCaffrey if something happens to Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is the safest bet to finish in the top 5 at running back. Breece Hall might be my second most favorite guy to finish in the top 5. That's the way I look at things. I don't say, oh, that guy's a lock for the top spot. When I'm drafting a running back in the first round, if I draft a running back in the first round.
There's 3 of them going, 4 of them.
There's 4 of them.
McCaffrey, Hall, Bijan, and Gibbs. That's it.
And in a best ball that just started today, I got Gibbs at 11.
And that's about where, the public's grabbing him at 12.
They're grabbing him about 11, 12. And I didn't like any of the wide receivers that were left. It was too early to go quarterback, too early to go tight end. So I took Gibbs at 11 and I was okay with that. But, you just kind of have to pick and choose your spots and say, hey, what am I willing to take a gamble on? And at that position, that's where I thought I felt the safest on him. I feel safe on Bijan at 3rd. I'm okay with that.
And you like Hall.
I like Hall. Love Hall. Love CMC. Love Bijan. Love Gibbs.
But again, everybody loves them.
Yeah, so everybody loves
them. So I try to use this different. So let's, and by the way, this is just me sorting by what the public is seeing right now.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit, a couple players, and then I want to show you something that it occurred to me a little bit later down the chain here. But look at let's talk about Josh Jacobs. Look at he
Yeah.
declined my metric from about 50, 60 to 38. So he declined 12, even 20% down. So I know he switched, and I know Green Bay loves their running backs. So I do say those are good things. I think they are cooking in that a little bit. So just be aware that he did drop down. He was in the second giant tier as I look at this data here. So what you think? What's your MVP? What's your feeling on his range of outcomes?
Yeah, he's another player who had a significant drop last season, if you
Oh
look
yeah.
at the data.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And is he still, up there as far as being one of the top running backs? Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. But
He's ninth right now.
asking him to be ninth best, I think you're kind of getting him at his ceiling as well.
Okay.
His MVP, if you look at single season, went from 107,
Which is great.
which is great. Actually, 100 as a rookie in 19, 107, 107, 106. How about that for a strong first 4 years?
Nice.
Almost no that's as consistent as you can get.
Yeah.
Dropped to 85 last season.
That's
Now
on the borderline of
80,
your rankings
correct.
there for the
85
top.
is still 85 is good. Anything over 80, I will be happy.
But that
But
decline's got to
that
worry, especially with running backs these days,
I
with
don't like
the
declines.
age, with the
Yep.
injury, and he's changing teams. I wonder if I was in a trading redraft, Dennis, and he starts out a little weak, he could be a trade target to get on the cheap. If he has a couple bad games coming out to shoot, that might open the door for some little, Dennis flimflammery and rob the cradle there a little bit. I mean, that's another way to almost predict some things here. I mean that. So notice I'm not just slavishly this is this and that. No, no, no. I'm using this as a guide because range of outcomes, statistics, understanding that there are and will be and going to be next year and the year variation. So you have, and I think that deeper level separates those that really do well here. And of course, being a biologist, that's what I've done for a living. Dennis, with his training as a weather guy, he's done that for a living. So I think that gives us a lot of advantages here. Okay.
Yeah,
Anything else
here's
about
yeah,
Jacobs?
for Jacobs, they added Marshawn Lloyd as a rookie. Now
Okay.
they didn't grab him early. No running backs went really early, only one in the second round.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you
But
about that next.
but they still added talent at the position to go with AJ Dillon. Now, I think Marshawn Lloyd is more of a threat to AJ Dillon for backup role,
Huh?
but that
So
cuts
handcuff
in
to the handcuff
that,
kind of thing.
correct, but that could cut into Jacobs's volume,
Mhm.
and we already saw a drop. So we're already seeing a drop. That gets us concerned. We see him going to a new team. That could be a concern, or it could be good news.
Mhm.
It's probably a better offense, which is good news, but it is a new team and it's a whole new offense. So that is a change that concerns me. But that potential of losing volume, it's just you start adding the check marks of negatives. And I look and I say, ninth best according to the public, that might be drafting him at his ceiling.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how you got to go down the list and say,
And the
number
next
one.
one, Dennis,
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers. What do you
Yeah.
think? I mean,
Oh,
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones is another guy to get concerned
But
about.
look at it. I mean, as you look, it's Jacobs. If we look at
Yes.
20, and then the next one, he's 18th and he's 36. So one would argue that if you love Jacobs, then Aaron Jones must be a great bargain
And he
if
was
they repeat that calm level.
and he was playing injured. So he was playing hurt, which
But he's getting
does
kind of long
show
in the
up.
tooth.
It is a negative.
See, I
He's
worry
getting
about
along in the tooth,
yeah, he's my
but
my age data about 6 years. I get a little bit antsy. If I was in dynasty, he's a hard sell probably to get out. Probably last year, you should have got out, but
yeah, but at 18th, if I'm drafting in a redraft or a best ball league and he's my option at 18, I think he can finish better than 18th,
yeah,
better
okay.
than his ADP.
See, I like
can't-
Ramondre Stevenson at 20.
Oh, love
He's a
Ramondre
doublet.
Stevenson.
He's a doublet for me. My
He-
metric says uh, good things about him.
oh yeah,
And
yeah, and
Pollard,
mine.
believe it or not, people are down on Pollard, but I'm liking Tennessee and I'm liking the doublet
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm all
for
over Ramondre Stevenson this year. He had a big drop in MVP last year, but that offense was absolutely horrible. It was worse than the year before, and I didn't think that was possible. He has been able to double up on your com data and be
he's good.
adequate,
He's
and
adequate.
he's coming at 20th. I grabbed him
He is a
very
solid
early.
RB2 for
I
me.
I grabbed him as my third running back
Oh,
in a
to
dynasty
me, that's a bargain.
upstart. Oh, it's a bargain and a half.
Yeah.
And I was thrilled with that addition to my team. Um, yeah, there was no doubt. I absolutely loved him. Another guy that is in that similar, like, he can't get any worse than his MVP than his ADP is Pacheco. They did not draft anybody to take over for him. So he is the running back of choice.
He's 13
on a really good team. 13th,
but he 50% is good. It's not great, but it's good in the top group. I mean, I'm not disappointed if I get him in the fourth round. I think he might be about there. That feels good to me.
And this is exactly how you have to look at the data is you have to look at your comfort level and you have to look at the players that are around him. So one player above him in ADP is Rashid White, who is the most inefficient running back. They pounded him with volume and he just barely he made good on it. He was good, but he was good because he was getting high volume. They brought in competition at the position this year. And Sean Tucker, who some expected to give him a run for that position last year, very talented player coming back from a serious knee injury, which is why he was undrafted last year as a rookie, but was signed by Tampa. He's had a full year to get healthy. So there's two competitions for volume for Rashid White, no competition for volume for Pacheco. Love that guy.
Yeah.
James Cook, a pick later than Pacheco, they added another running back who actually does what James Cook does well, which is catch the ball. Not that they're throwing to him enough, but he is equally good out of the backfield. He's better with it between the tackles than Cook. He's a bigger back. He's a stronger back. So they added a guy who might take away from his volume. It's not that I dislike either Rashid White or James Cook. I'm just saying I like Pacheco better. I like Mixon better. I like Stevenson better than those guys. And Stevenson is going almost 2 rounds later, 3 rounds later.
So then, given your discussion about things as far as competition. Look at Javonte Williams in Denver. My data is showing he's weak and vulnerable. Is that how you're thinking? So
Yes.
is Zamir White and
Yep.
Jalen Warren. Though those three, 26, 27. So your start of your RB2 three types, they all look weak to me.
Yeah.
So can we take advantage of that with a downstream Puka type that's going to surprise? Is there anything in those three situations that we might collect?
Yes,
And maybe even Zach
absolutely.
Moss, Dennis, same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Zach Moss is the same way. I don't like Zach Moss this year. I think he is being drafted as if he is the starting running back. And I'm think the best case for him is an even split. I think Chase Brown, last year's rookie at the position that sat behind Mixon all year,
Mhm.
he's healthy after coming back from an injury in preseason last year that set him back. I think he's going to take over that spot. He's going much, much later than Zach Moss. I think that's the guy that you want. But you're right. Javonte Williams
I'm worried
is
about him.
he is prime for a crash because every piece of data, he has never been better than a 65 with my MVP index
And
for a
mine
season.
puts him at mid second tier if I had three tiers. So I'm not
Yes.
strong on him at all. Uh, just folks, the way I think about this at this level, I'm almost thinking, I should probably shop hard for this is round 7. So I'm probably maybe even getting my second tight end or quarterback at this point if you go the elite thing, or trying to find a bargain WR at this point in the draft and letting some of these free float and pick up, like you say, the Chase Browns and some of the other guys. I don't know about Eckler. Eckler, I'm not sure how to read that. I mean, he at one time, Dennis, at an 81 a few years ago, that's strong. But boy, last year, was he hurt? What was going on with Eckler?
He was playing hurt, but it was also a lousy offense. Like they couldn't get out of their own way at times, and he just was not as good. And he's also gotten a year older, and I'm kind of worrying that
Yeah.
Father Time caught up with him.
Well, I think the public is worried at 29.
And there's a more youthful Brian Robinson who is going real cheap that's
Mm-hmm.
being ignored,
Mm-hmm.
who was really strong last year. You know, he was good in my MVP index because he had very few really bad games. He didn't have as many high end games, which is why he didn't hit any higher on your com data,
Yep.
but his consistency was not horrible at the position. He's going a few players after Eckler, and it might be the classic running back by committee. A guy that I really like in that early 20s group of running backs.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'll keep going back to James Conner until he beats me. He's
Oh, he's a
he's
doublet.
he's a 5 in a row, 6 in a row
Yeah, look at
guy
him.
that he's had, and he gets ignored every single year. I'll take a
22.
shot at him. I know they drafted a
Late.
rookie.
And in
No, they
fact, yeah, and folks, when these go about, see, he's only right there close to the start of the RB3s. You could see him in some drafts even dropping down a little
oh
bit,
yeah,
in
yeah,
best ball. I mean, you might get him in early round 8.
the
I
other
certainly would take him at 6, but 7 seems good compared to some of the other ones around him.
oh yeah, and the guy that
I
I might
noticed you
even
hadn't said anything about my Tony Pollard there. I'm just looking at the data. He's a doublet as well.
Pollard did.
Connor,
Pollard's
yeah,
a doublet,
yeah.
and now they're going to have a
Maybe
brand new
he's
offense.
the odd duck out. I know. I mean,
Ty,
but
Tajay Spears
yeah,
is the
yeah.
guy from last
Tennessee
year.
loves their RBs.
and they could go with a tandem that could hurt his volume. I don't dislike Tony Pollard, but I'm concerned about him. I think he's priced right. And at
But I'm
that
saying
price,
with him, Connor, those guys could drop, and it might
oh
entice
yeah,
me in
yes.
the 8th, or I doubt they'll go to the 9th, but let's say the 9th. Man, I'm getting interested then.
If he drops to the 8th round, I'm all over him.
Yeah, I'm
At
interested.
the 7th round, I like DeAndre Swift better. I like Ramondre Stevenson better.
Swift is another one. You and I really loved him last year.
And
I did
and
like the bounce back. I like the 3 out of 4.
Yes.
A lot of goodness coming out at about that section there, the RB2 to 3. That
And
I mean,
no volume concerns either this year. He's
so
been
yeah, go ahead. I was
he's
just
been
going to change the subject.
yeah, he's been splitting volume, and now
Mm-hmm.
he is going to be the man in Chicago. He's going to get probably 2/3 of the volume at that position. And I think he's going to be back to his first 2 years at Detroit, where he was in that 54 value for Com. I think that's what we're looking at. And if you look at your rest of your 54 guys from last year, look
Mm-hmm.
how much earlier they're going, with the
Yeah.
exception of Connor. So
Well,
I'm
now
looking at
I will say, Raheem Mostert. I did want to hit him next. He's that I call that a giraffe. We
yes.
have this and 1 year he spikes up, right? It's like, who is this cat? And then does he, like the gopher, right? Goes back in his hole next year. I wonder.
Unbelievable number of touchdowns for Mostert
Yep.
last year. I can't see him
Okay.
backing
Well,
that up.
I think the public would agree with you.
Plus, you got a healthy Devon Shane,
I, I,
and they added Jalen Wright, another running back.
I'm not saying I'm on him. I'm just saying I do note that. Okay. So
Yeah.
I wanted to, when I color coded the rookies, and I was just thinking, if I look at my com data and I get the average in this sector, this is
Oof.
the 8th, 9th, 10th. We're talking com data at about 21. So that is on the cusp of being third tier sucky right there. And the public is not enamored with Brooks or Benson. They think they're better than Corum or Wright or Lloyd. I guess, Dennis, and I don't know. I think for just a beginning assessment, I would put them tier 2 in my data, and probably bottom of tier 2, and that's what the public is saying as well. Is Lloyd better? If I'm gonna go with a rookie or two, which one of these 5? Tell me 2 of them I should squirrel for that better than zero drafting style that you advocate. The editor's still mad at you for giving away the farm.
So my top 2 guys,
Yep, in that group.
my top guy in this group is Jonathan Brooks. The only guy he's taking on is Schuber Hubbard. And we saw what Schuber was the last 3 years. He was,
that's it.
He's a grinder. Yeah. He's a grinder. He's not going to be a starting running back if you've got a better option.
Schubert is 18%, so he's third tier.
And I think Brooks can easily be a 40% guy next in over.
If he does, he would pay off compared to what. Yeah, we're talking a nice RB3 value that you get is RB2 at the end of the year. Yeah, that'd be nice.
So he's the first guy that I really like.
Tell me the next one.
The next one isn't even on this chart yet. It's Audric Steam at Denver.
Wow.
Because we're going to go all the way down, and we're going to go shopping late because he's going.
So that is a deep. That's deep pockets there, Dan. Well, that's fine. I mean, look where you're 59th, 60th pick. So,
and if I had to go with a third guy as a rookie, that I think is going to break out. Now, there's some guys that I like better in Dynasty. Okay.
Yeah.
But if I'm just looking at this year, who I think is going to hit the chart. The other is Ray Davis, Buffalo.
Okay.
I'm not scared of James Cook to the
Okay.
point that I will not.
Well, remember, so
now
folks,
here's the
you
thing.
can look at
Here's
this.
Here's the thing. I might take some James Cook if he goes dropping down a few picks. So if let's say Cook goes dropping into the mid 5th round, I might take a shot at him, but I'll follow up that pick with Ray Davis in the double-digit rounds because I want as many of these rookies as possible this year. The other guy that I love is Bucky Irving with Tampa because, you know, we saw Rashid White have success because he had lots and lots of volume, but he wasn't really good in the passing game. Bucky Irving's really good in the passing game. So that opens up an opportunity to grab some of the volume. Now, I'm not saying I like these guys better than some of the top 10 or top 15 or even top 20 running backs. What I'm telling you is at this point in the draft, they are huge, huge bargains because their upside potential is like 15. Maybe 10th for Brooks.
Can Ezekiel Elliott come back? Look at his career. Is he on the way out, or is
He's
there
on the
one
way
more
out.
show? Is there
He's
one
on
more
the way
show?
out, but in the 13th or 12th round,
14th,
I might take
14th.
Yeah, see, I might take a shot at him in the 12th or 13th round because he's going to be the starting running back for Dallas.
His name is going. I think closer to August, he's going to be up because people they're going to be sitting there and they're going to be replaying those replays in their head, and they're going to remember the old days, and they're going to forget last year.
Yeah, and this is how I look at the running back position is I'll go through the ADP and I will circle the guys that I think are of value where they're going in the draft. And once I've got all my circles in place, I kind of have an idea of where I'm going to make my moves. If I pass on a guy early, let's say I pass on a guy like Rashid White in the 4th round, and I say, that's a little early. That's a little early for Rashid White. Right. I'm going to pass on him. I know I have alternatives later in the draft that I'm happy with. And as long as I come out of the draft with 7 or 8 running backs, because that's what I do. When it comes to my redraft,
they can read that article there. I think you have 3 or 4 on that better than zero giving away the farm articles here, Dennis.
And it's just a
makes it harder for me to pay off my mortgage. Okay.
It's a simple strategy, folks. It says if I get it,
put money in your pocket, Dennis. I know because I've used it.
It has put money in your pocket because but the concept is so crazy, people won't buy into it until the real smart people look at it and they're going,
somebody's going to call it something else, and they go, hey, that's fine.
This looks okay. But no, if you get your running backs, you get your quarterback, you get your tight end, and there's more, in my opinion, just my opinion. This year again, I feel more confident about the elite quarterback group, the elite tight end group, and the elite and the secondary elite, meaning the top 24 guys, top 25 guys, let's say at wide receiver. My top 25, which is different than the ADP top 25, but my top 25 at wide receiver, if I can get 4 of those guys, I will draft as many running backs as possible. I probably won't draft anything but running back starting with round 10 or 11 until I have to fill out my defense or my kicker at the end of the draft, because I want as many shots at the uncertainty as I can get. If I'm confident about a position, I feel good about quarterbacks this year. If I can come out of a draft with Jalen Hurts or Jordan Love or even a Dak Prescott, and you notice I didn't say the top guys. I just said the guys that I think are the best values at their ADP,
Yeah.
who I
We'll
think are
talk
going to
about
be,
that, Dennis.
yeah.
We're
But
gonna
if
talk.
that's the strategy, I feel confident at quarterback. I feel confident with my tight end guys, as long as I don't screw up and miss a tight end and I don't screw up and miss a quarterback. I feel really good about just taking many, many shots at running back, because only one player is going to get Christian McCaffrey on his squad. Only one's going to get Jonathan Taylor or Brees Hall. I want one of those top 8 to 10 guys in ADP. I would love to have one more in the top 20 in ADP. Then I'm going to load up on a bunch of rookies, a bunch of guys, Chase Browns, Tyjae Spears. I don't have to hit every shot I take, Professor.
Yep.
If I take 9 running backs,
yep,
and 2 of them are already pretty solid, I got to hit 1 out of 7 the rest of the way. And I like my odds of being able to do that. Now, if I only take 3 shots at it, I'm not so crazy about my chances.
yeah,
But if I got 7 shots to get 1 solid starter, meaning a flex starter in my leagues, if I get 7 shots at that, I'm fairly confident that I'm going to get 1 out of 7. More than I'm confident that I'm going to get 1 out of 3. That's why I prefer to draft a lot of running backs.
yep. I love it, but I don't like it. Okay, so with spreadsheet, Dennis, I sorted by biometric, just very simple. And now the round pops up, and you can clearly see somebody like Kamara was number 2 last year. He's in the 5th round. So
Wow.
another way to kind of, change the discussion. See, I think that's what we should be doing. And maybe this is that decision hygiene. We got to look at different slices and way of dealing with the data. And this is another way. Okay. We sorted by what the public thinks to, last week, but pretty much this week. And now I'm letting my metric tell me, so I could juggle those scenarios. And Kamara jumps out, Dennis. There's others, but Kamara certainly jumps. So tell me why that's not, why the public is right and this is overstating his case.
Oh, they're absolutely wrong when it comes to Alvin Kamara. I would even make a case that I'd probably take him around earlier to make sure I get him on my team. I'd be okay with taking Kamara in the 4th round. If I get him in the 5th, great. Like if I am I confident enough that he'll drop all the way? I mean, 59 is almost the end of the 5th round. I can get him early in the 5th, early to mid in the 5th round, and I'll be happy with that pick. I love in here. We can go right down the list.
Yep.
I love Christian McCaffrey's a great bargain. He's a great value at the first pick in the draft. You don't say that very often, but he's a unicorn.
He could get hurt. So now we're
could get hurt.
What, 10%, 20%, whatever chance it is, he's going to miss some games.
Yeah,
okay?
That's the only concern
Even
I
if
have.
he does that, I still think the weeks that he plays, my comm data says he's going to deliver above median. Look at that, 90%, Dennis. That's what 15 games out of 17. Goodness.
Yeah, that's insane.
He's going to crush your league for you.
Even if I only get 10 games, 10 to 12 games out of him, I'm happy. So yeah, Kamara's a bargain.
Yep. He's 77. So almost
he's
80%.
yeah.
So Dennis, we're talking 15 games,
And
maybe 14 games.
another way I like to look at this data, professors, I like to
Yeah.
say, what if?
What if?
What if a player drops 10 to 15%?
That still
Where
puts him
he's still up there.
nicely
He's
in
still
the
up there.
group. He'll still
Kyron
be a bargain. Yeah.
Kyron Williams in the second round
Barkley, Taylor.
Concerns me because he's that 1 year
Well,
wonder,
we just don't know.
and they drafted a running back.
To Reno's parade, my data says just the 1 year repeat is closer to 50%, and last year was 35. RBs tend to be a little sketchy, but like I said, once you got the doublets, it gets a lot stronger. So I think if he can come through again this year, I think he's got a great career.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah,
and he's a dynasty. So I guess in dynasty, he would be somebody that if third or fourth year he hadn't come through, I think you could sell him and still get some value and thinking, I don't think he's going to hit the arc I want him to hit. And again, I'm not a dynasty expert, but that's how another way I might use this if I'm a dynasty player. Is what I
yeah,
don't know. Do you think about things? It's the
yeah.
old get rid of them early. Sell your house for the termites chew it completely down.
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in this get rid of good players for value type thing because
Okay.
if too many people are of that belief,
Yeah.
the value is not that great. So running backs are always going to be devalued in dynasty fantasy football because the majority of
Uh-huh.
players
Uh,
tell you that these players are not worth as much as you think. And that's a change over the last 5 years. And it's a change because guys have not been able to back up great years. But, and again, I'm not saying Kyron Williams is a bad player. Okay. Last year, he was on over 80% of my single season teams. I was all over the guy. But what I'm telling you is he's priced too high to be a great value this year. Saquon Barkley worries me because I'm concerned about the volume. So again, love the player, think there's value there, but is he priced a little too high? Jonathan Taylor, I'm all over. I can't get enough of Jonathan Taylor on my team. I think he's going to be staying healthy. I think he's going to have a heck of a year. Derrick Henry, moving from a lousy offense. Look at the stats he put up last year on a bad offense. Now he
Pretty
goes to
damn good. Yep.
now he goes to a really good offense.
Yep.
I'm kind of liking some Derrick Henry. I know he's like 45 years old, but he's still going to be able to repeat that. He's been good 5 years in a
You can
row.
collect two boss WRs and still could get Henry
Oh yeah,
as your RB1
yeah. So
if
so
you want to
there's
play it that way.
oh yeah. So there's options here to make sure that you leave the third round with two really good running backs, like two
You could
great
play it
running
that way.
backs.
Yeah, and knowing that Kamara could be collected as well down the road.
Knowing that Kamara could be collected, knowing that Joe Mixon can be
It's right there.
collected
James
in the fifth
Conner.
round, James Conner in the
And
seventh
look,
round,
he's another.
Pacheco in the fourth round, Swift in the seventh round. These are all guys that I would love to have on my team.
There's Pollard seventh.
I'd get 3 or 4 of these guys.
I'm not saying. I'm just I like that doublet. So that's
yes,
but I'm just saying this again. I'm telling you, there's two that are false. Connor could be one. The public would probably argue, yep, they would argue that Pollard's probably one of those guys that I should assume is going to fail this year. Anybody else? Stevenson sitting there. Think about it. You could get Henry, Kamara, Stevenson, Connor. You could have 4. I mean, you could be just greedy. Yeah.
I
And still
I
have
could
a boss tied in and a boss QB.
I could open up with two wide receivers
Yep.
and a running back, and
Yep.
then come back and cash in for Kamara, Swift,
Yep.
and having grabbed maybe Mixon,
Yep. And
and
then you
then
could get Dak Prescott and
and then
now you
Stevens.
might have to stream the tight ends. People get a little crazy. We play those tight end premium
Yeah.
things over there, and people get a little crazy. And again, folks, this is just normal ADP. It's not tied in because I will assure everybody when I'm starting to draft, I'm going to be having that ADP for a tight end premium one quarterback. I'm going to know what the strategy. I'm going to have that picked on how I
And,
play that.
and if you reverse engineer your team by knowing the last acceptable
That
tight
kind of
end
thing.
and quarterback, now you know where I can take my wide receivers, where I can take my running backs, and you can build a team in a smart
You
way.
could get Dak Prescott and still collect Connor, Swift, Stevens. I mean, you could do well.
And then you clean up late with a bunch of these bargain running backs.
Yeah.
And so when I go into a draft professor,
Okay.
I have usually three or four quarterbacks targeted, three or four tight ends targeted, maybe 15 running backs targeted. And in that way, I know I'm going to get my 7 to 9 guys from my list without taking any reaches, but I'm getting them all at great, I'm getting most of them at great value.
So way down the list, Edwards, Ford, and Khalil Herbert are kind of jumping out by the way, if you do it this way. What are we thinking there for those three guys? You see how they're I know they're deep down, and Dennis would probably argue the rookie, but I'm just saying, are one of these three worth a stab here at this point?
So who were the other guys other than Herbert?
Edwards, Ford, and Khalil Herbert. If you look at the screen,
yeah, love Ford. Absolutely love
see
Ford
right
in this
there,
opportunity.
and then Camille, and even Deontay Foreman at 18.
Yeah, I don't think Foreman's gonna beat out Ford until Chubb comes back, and that's the big concern: is when does Chubb come back?
Okay,
He might not come back and be able to be starting this year. So Ford is a great bargain.
Herbert, anything
Herbert, I
worth a
don't.
stab?
Yeah,
He's
going
will
cheap
be,
enough. He's going cheap enough.
But I'm
If I,
just,
yeah,
what are we thinking?
I would probably only grab him on teams where I have Swift.
Okay,
So if I
he
take
would be your
Swift in the
handcuff.
7th, I'll
Then
handcuff
I'm
him
taking.
with
Okay,
Herbert. Now, the problem in Chicago is you also have a guy by the name of Roshan Johnson that they took as a rookie the previous year.
Yep.
So will Johnson beat out Herbert for that second spot?
Yeah.
That's the question. So sometimes when I have a question that is that tough, I'll either take Herbert or Johnson, or I'll just take Swift and just
forget it.
Let it beat me. But the other guy that I like on this list is Jaylen Warren. I actually think Jaylen Warren could take over as the lead back from Harris. I don't think that's asking a lot. And another guy that I like on this list that's going late, I know he's at the end of your yellow category there.
Yep.
But Zamir White did not have any competition drafted to replace him. And Alexander Madison is the only guy he's got to compete against.
Yeah, late. Late. Late.
And eighth round might be too early for him.
Yeah.
So there might be better options in that 8th round. But again, he's a guy that if he falls another round or two, or I'm in that situation and he's the best on the board, he's not a guy that I'm going to run away from. But you're right. Once you get down here,
we're in the bargain. This is the It's the dollar store picks here,
And
Dennis.
once you're in the dollar store picks,
Yep.
avoid the veterans who
And
have
get
never
the
shown
rookie.
much.
And get the
Okay.
rookie.
Go with the rookies. Go with the rookies. Go with the second year guys. You know, Kendra Miller. I'm going to handcuff him to my Kamara shares this year
He is right there.
because
You could collect him nicely.
he's
Yeah.
a cheap guy to grab. You know, there are a lot of these guys.
What about
late.
Dowell? If Elliott,
No, don't like him. Don't like him.
Okay.
Dowdle had actually.
I mean, he had sucky time. I mean, I'm not.
But
Yeah.
he's been in the league 4 years, and last year, out of necessity,
They played
he
him.
finally got played at the end, and that's all he did. He's been a career backup. They added Royce Freeman, who I think will beat him out,
Yeah.
even though I don't like Freeman either. Chase Brown is a guy with Cincinnati I would bet on. He didn't get much opportunity last year as a rookie.
Damian Pierce, look at that. Had a
Damian-
46 and then an
Yep.
8.
Yeah, and Damian Pierce might
But
also be a
it's late.
great handcuff to Mixon because
But that's late. But
that's very, very late.
I think he showed somebody down there that he can deliver.
Prior to getting injured,
Yep.
he was a good pick. And here's the crazy thing with Damian Pierce. If you're in a league, and a lot of the home leagues that I play in, a lot of the sort of buy invite leagues that I play in include kick return stats.
Ooh.
Pierce could be a monster with these new kick return rules. So
Nice.
that's another way that you play to the rules of your league and find these little gems late in drafts. But you know,
And by the way, we could sort by team, and I will do that later for us in the summer, Dennis. So then we can hone down team by team and look at the depth versus the column. And like I said, if you'll one day you're going to get your MVP, we could do the same kind of analysis using your consistency metric as well. And I look forward to that because this is what I'm looking at. Decision hygiene says slow to make decision and look at multiple slices from other people and sources. So I'm depending on you, coming through for me because I'm gonna get serious in August. So I'm gonna need some June, July magic for your metrics compared to what the public's dealing out. So we're going to be looking for that.
and we're going to combine my weekly values with
oh,
my MVP
I'm
index
all about that.
with your com data and come up with a super
duper data.
super decision.
So
data,
what about,
yes.
let's look at we're talking some of these that had history. Miles Sanders had a good 4 years ago. That sounds Gibson, he did 3 years ago. Chubb, I guess Chubb's the big unknown for injury. Is he going to be that bad that we're not? I mean, he's in the 9th round. I think he'll go up. I think people are going like Elliott. People are going to remember Chubb, and they're going to. I think he's going to get to where maybe right now he could be okay, but I think if he starts going too high, he's not going to be worth the gamble.
No, and at eighth or ninth round is where he's going now. That's
feels
a
like
little,
that's
a little rich for me.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: if I think that I'm worth that he's worth an investment,
you would want Ford, right? You would get
then
Ford,
I would want Ford, yeah.
And then you collect Chubb.
I've got that position tied up because I don't have faith in Deontay Foreman. Okay. So I'm going to take a chance. If I've got a situation that's got 3 heads, I'll take 2. I usually will not clog my roster with all 3. So if I take Chubb, I would probably take Ford, but in the 8th, 9th rounds,
that's pretty rich down here.
There's probably other other bargains
Okay.
that I'm grabbing ahead of him.
I know you're a Chiefs homer. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 20th pick. Is that your got
Not,
to pick him because he's a Chief, or you're
yeah,
off him?
I'd be off of him. I just don't see it. Yes, he got re-signed to a 1-year deal. Yes, he is the
Helaire
logic.
versus Damian Pierce
No, I'm taking Pierce all day because
all day.
I think Pierce has a better chance of
Okay.
seeing Mixon miss a game or two because of his age than
Gotcha.
Pacheco missing a game or two. And I think that the Chiefs, they're going to use the rugby guy at running back. They're going to play around with him. And if by some weird chance he actually is good
Yep.
at playing NFL football,
Yep.
then he would beat out Helaire if something happened to Pacheco. But when I look at Pacheco, I look at a player that is likely to play 14 or more games.
Yep.
Versus a guy like Mixon, who I could see him because of his age and because of the fact that Houston's going to say, you know what? I think we got a real good chance of winning in the playoffs if Mixon's around. Though that's when those players, that's when those kind of guys get rested. It might be interesting late in the season because Kansas City has a stretch where they play 3 games in 10 days.
I understand.
By that
They
point
may
in the
risk
season,
Pacheco. Yeah, they
by
may.
that point in the season, I'll grab the backup, but I'll take him off of waivers because he'll be there.
Gotcha. What about Dobbins?
I actually like Dobbins.
Yeah, he's going at the 14th round. I mean, he's not the only one but people like, Zach Charbonnet. Is that how you say his name?
Charbonnet. Yeah.
Charbonnet.
I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, but I call him Charbs.
Yeah. And then Gibson and Dobbins are kind of, this data would say people are seeing something more than this data would tell you. People are expecting something different than we got last year. Let's say like that.
When Dobbins has been healthy,
yep,
he's been about a 35%er on your data. Okay.
Yes.
And 35%er is really good for 14th round.
Yes.
So
if he could repeat at 35, even 30% at 14, he's fine.
And the only guy he's really got to compete against for touches is Gus Edwards, who has missed time historically and also been kind of average. So you've got, a reason to like Dobbins that late in the draft. And again,
did they draft a rookie down there at Chargers?
Not one that I really like.
Okay.
They got a guy by the name of Vidal late. And,
right here. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's kind of he'd kind of be the punt guy. But I think he's only getting a chance. I like his team better. Okay.
Okay.
I like even, I kind of, there's other guys I like better at that point in the draft. I like Ray Davis, like Bucky Irving. Those guys I think have a better chance of succeeding.
Getting some play, yeah.
And I even like Garendo and Tracy as far as rookies go. Garendo, because he is going to have a shot at the Elijah Mitchell volume, which I think could be about 40% of San Francisco's volume if they try to get CMC a little bit fresher into the playoffs. Okay. And Tracy just has to beat out Singletary for touches with the
so
Giants.
That could be a surprise.
He could be another bargain as well, but that Giants offense could be absolutely abysmal. So you got to look at these rookies and say, here's another guy I like. Breece Hall is going to lose his job to Braylon Allen. But if Breece Hall gets hurt, Braylon Allen is the next man up. He's coming pretty cheap in the 15th round. I think he's a guy that I would take a shot at as well. And especially in 17-week schedules now, when these teams have a shorter turnaround than normal, I think you're going to see a lot of the starters rested.
So let me, since I am videoing this, let's do it this way. So here's our rookies. You love Brooks, right? He's your,
Like Brooks.
okay. So I'm gonna do it. Okay. Who's next? If I'm just
Next up, I like Bucky Irving and Ray
Bucky
Davis.
and Davis. Wow.
Ray Davis.
So you, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I like Esteem with Denver
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just
because
trying to get, this is my Puka
he's
sense that,
he's got
yeah.
he's got
And
weak
you just,
guys to go against. And I just
and
mentioned
Tracy. Yeah.
Tracy and Garendo
Yeah.
are also guys that I'll take a shot at.
Okay.
I those are the guys that I
Okay.
think
Well, we don't have
the
to have
most,
everybody, but
yeah.
okay.
I think they
That's
got
it.
the logical attack, and I like Braylon Allen to back up.
I
Brees Hall.
see the better than zero. You could walk with 2 or 3 of these cats in your pocket, Dennis.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I applied the same concept to a dynasty draft recently,
Mhm.
and I came away with 6 rookies.
Nice.
Because, and it wasn't that I think all 6 of these guys are going to hit.
Now, who did we get for our team that we share? Actually, it's your team, and I
we
just
got a ton of
good.
rookies with them as well.
Good.
In a lot of the guys that I just mentioned. So if we look at our
Good.
team,
Yeah.
we
I
look at
forgot.
our team,
Yeah.
the Boilermaker crawfish.
Yeah,
they're,
I
of
love the
course, called
crawfish. Yeah.
the crawfish.
Boilermaker. Yeah.
So we grabbed as our running backs
Yeah.
from this draft. We grabbed Bucky Irving, Esteem,
Nice.
Garendo,
Mhm.
Tracy.
Mhm.
We got Dylan Lobb from Las Vegas and Rasheen Ali from Baltimore, who I don't even think is getting drafted right
He's
now.
not. So he's free.
But he's another guy that I would not be ashamed to leave a best ball or redraft at the very end. If you have not filled out all of your running backs, he's a guy that I wouldn't be ashamed of taking, because if anything happens to Derrick Henry, he's more likely to be the full-time replacement with Keaton Mitchell getting some of the volume. He won't get Derrick Henry volume, but he might get enough volume to be a good flex guy on your team. And we got him free at the end of the draft. We got him as the 7th round rookie pick.
Dennis, what can I say here? I know we're getting, you tired me out here. I'm getting greedy and I want to draft now, but I'm trying to withhold my judgment here, Dennis. But I do like this. So what I'm gonna do, see, in maybe June, see, I'll have all this. I'll come back to this, and you're going to tell me something else. I'm gonna hold it now. So I'm gonna kind of lock in. Don't be tricking me.
And here's the thing, Professor. It's May, middle of May, and by late June, by July, by August, by
we'll know a lot more.
1 week before the season starts, the opinions on the rookies will change. What I'm telling you right now is that, in my opinion, this rookie class of running backs, which got really trashed by most people on fantasy football Twitter, didn't have one go until the 2nd round with Brooks. Had most of these guys go on the 3rd day of the draft. So in other words, very late, 4th through 7th rounds. But what I'm telling you is, of these guys that we just mentioned now, 3 of them will have at least 2 or 3 weeks where they are a significant scorer, meaning top 30 at their position for a particular week, because they're going to have to get used, because injuries are going to happen and 17-week schedule short turnarounds are going to happen. Some of these guys are going to be weekly plays in all formats of fantasy football, and you're getting them at the tail end of the draft. Don't take guys that have already proven that they can't play that well in the NFL. And instead of taking those guys who have already shown you what they are, and that's below average, why not take a shot on a rookie or second year player who has not seen the field enough to make a judgment on them yet?
Nice.
It's all upside play. And that's when I agree with those who say upside's all that matters in fantasy football. After round 10 in my fantasy draft, I'm looking probably at all upside, because by that point, I have gotten rid of all of the veterans who have proven that they're consistent in fantasy football.
Nice, nice. Well, I'm going to stop the sharing there. Dennis, that was great. We really got detailed here this time. I think I want to do wide receivers maybe next week or something.
Wide receivers next week, and then
We'll give the same treatment here, folks. So if you liked how I was able to shift the different views, again, cleaning up how we make decisions, unless you're risking lots of money this time. This is just kind of putting your foot in the swimming pool, see how cold it is. That's all we just did. And you're thinking, wow, you went, folks, we live, eat, and breathe this stuff all the time, 24/7, 365. So you don't want us in your league. So I'm just saying, you don't. Maybe you'll beat us, but I guarantee you I will make money. Dennis we will collect jack from somebody. There'll be enough chumps out there in the water that we will collect. I mean, no offense to anybody, but come on. Are you doing this? Are you living, eating, breathing, doing the data, thinking about range of outcomes, trying to get better all the time, beta testing? Come on, man. Beta testing down at the bar with Ho-Ho and Flimbot ain't going to get it. That is not going to put money in your pocket. All the rummies and the drunks down there, that is not going to do anything. And if that's your, that's how you prepare your cheat sheet is, figure out. I'll tell you what, if you want to find out what all the drunks down at the bar think in fantasy, mark those out. Do not draft those people. And I think you probably have a better shot at winning. Okay. It's the old horse racing trick. Okay. If the hot dog man likes it, you don't like it. How about that, Dennis?
And where the sauce from your hot wings falls on your cheat sheet is not a scientific way
no.
to pick your player. So head over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. The professor's got some great lesson plans there for you to check out. Some great ADP data to dissect as well.
Put that out. Yep.
Some articles by me as well. Check out what I had to say about consistency, what I have to say about different
redraft and the dynasty. You lay it all out once again. You just give away the farm.
Handing over ideas, but that's what we do. And then head on back here next week for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks.
That was good